On the Wilton Major Crimes Case Squad for about a week now, I'd say. Nothing too big's really happened. It's sort of a quiet town, but I'm sure it'll pick up eventually. Yep. Alright. No, I'll be on it. Okay. It looks like we've got a 187. That's a homicide. Looks like things are about to get pretty exciting.
Okay, we're pulling up to the crime scene now. It should be very interesting.
Alright, this is where we got the call. This is Mrs. White's body. Apparently there were multiple lacerations on the face and a stabbing of the jugular vein. She did not go down easy.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, sorry, I can't talk to the media right now.
Is there any more information that the MCCP has on the murder case?
Now that you say it, we think that the victim most likely died of the stab wound, but a toxicology report is coming in any day now. Also, I think that we have all of our suspects in custody, and currently we're taking information from them and interviewing them.
The first suspect we have in custody is Colonel Mustard. He's known for his caustic personality. From the background I did on him, he seems to procrastinate quite a bit. Let's see if I have it here. Oh yes, here it is. He has 17 reports of attending extra help the day of the quiz. This guy has got some nerve. During the interrogation, he said he just wanted the grade. This ruthless attitude was enough to merit a search warrant, and we ended up finding 0.2 to 0.3 molarity sodium carbonate. This is Miss Scarlett. She has clear red markings from experiments done without proper safety measures, and also touching chemicals without washing her hands afterwards. She was an up-and-coming actress, but now has no hope for a career with her rash. She has vowed to have her revenge on Miss White for not having proper housekeeping done. After searching her Chevy Vega, we uncovered calcium chloride with 0.05 to 0.15 molarity. He is a bitter man, a former student of Miss White, who now suffers abdominal pain, headache, irritability, joint pain, fatigue, anemia, and motor neuropathy due to overexposure to lead. It said he spent more than 3 years attending Wilton High School in attempts to pass chem due to his poor laboratory safety and not paying attention to directions. We found 0.05 to 0.15 molarity sodium carbonate hidden in the compartment of his high school gym locker. Miss Peacock is famous for not doing her part during labs, while at the same time expecting her partners to give her part of the credit. She also asked for extensions on eutexis, homework, and even tests. When nobody wanted to be her partner, or even work with her, she blamed Miss White. We ended up finding sodium carbonate with more than 3 molarity in her possession. Mr. Green was very bitter towards Miss White. He blamed her for his osteomalacia. As a student, Mr. Green used to get by with his social skills alone, but Miss White put a stop to it. He was forced to stay inside all day and work on chemistry. This lack of exposure to the sun, paired with his choice to ignore the vitamin D lecture, meant he had severe vitamin D deficiency, causing the osteomalacia. We found calcium chloride with a molarity greater than 0.2 while searching his desk. As I drove, I began to ponder the case. Who could have killed Miss White? They all had a motive. The thing is, only one of them had the pure strength and chiseled muscle to pull it off. Miss Scarlett.
H2, oh no. There she is. Get her, boys! Mrs. Scarlett, you're under arrest for the murder of Mrs. White. You have the right to remain silent. Oh, I don't want to hear that sob story. Save it for the judge.
Unfortunately, after further investigation, it was revealed we had arrested the wrong person. Our best chemists at Wilton High School, Derek Thomas, Jesse Huffman, Nicole Khanna, and Joseph Sauditi, found that Miss White was poisoned. They explain in their summary, which you should all have in front of you, that the chemicals Professor Plum had matched that of the poison. It's evident that the fragile Professor Plum stabbed Mrs. White after she died of poison to remove suspicion away from himself. Professor Plum will now spend the rest of his life in prison for 1 account of homicide and 1 account of breaking the honor above all pact. I will now outline how the chemists solved the murder. They first ensured that all glassware was clean. Then they made solutions for 1 molarity sodium carbonate, along with 0.5 molarity calcium chloride. They then put 2 drops of sodium carbonate and calcium chloride in separate drops of the unknown number 3, in each of the well holes in order to see which one reacts. Because the unknown reacted with calcium chloride and not with sodium carbonate, they then knew that the unknown was some concentration of sodium carbonate. They measured out 20 milliliters of calcium chloride in a graduated cylinder. They then measured out 5 milliliters of the unknown in a graduated cylinder. After which, they combined the 20 milliliters of calcium chloride and the 5 milliliters of the unknown in an Erlenmeyer flask. They then waited 10 minutes for the reaction to take place. After this, they masked a piece of filter paper and recorded the mass. They then folded the filter paper and set it up in a filter over an Erlenmeyer flask. They then poured the combined mixture in the Erlenmeyer flask into the filter and rinsed out the Erlenmeyer with deionized water in order to ensure that all of the precipitate went into the filter. After this, they tested the supernatant with the sodium carbonate and the calcium chloride in order to make sure that the calcium chloride was the excess reactant. The supernatant should react with the sodium carbonate and should not react with calcium chloride. Their next step was to wait for the precipitate and filter paper to dry completely. After this, they masked the filter paper with the precipitate on it. They subtracted the mass of the filter paper from the mass of the filter paper along with the precipitate in order to get the mass of solely the precipitate. They then converted the grams of precipitate to moles of precipitate. They divided the amount of moles by 0.005 in order to get molarity of the unknown. They then repeated this steps 6 through 18 2 times for trials 2 and 3. It's a murder case after all. They wanted to be specific and make sure that they had a large sample size. Once they had the molarity of the unknown, they were able to find which of the suspects did it, in this case Professor Plum, because he had not only the matching molarity, but also the matching chemical according to the precipitate we found. The materials used were as follows: an unknown substance in a test tube, a supply of sodium carbonate, and a supply of calcium chloride, as well as a supply of deionized water. Also, a squirt bottle, an Erlenmeyer flask, a test tube rack, and a safe place for the experiment to sit overnight and dry. You will also need parafilm, filters, filter paper, and finally an eyedropper.
The chemists solved this mystery by using these calculations. They first subtracted the mass of the filter paper by the mass of the filter paper and precipitate. So for trial 1, the mass of the filter and precipitate was 0.9834 grams, and the mass of the filter paper was 0.8481 grams, yielding 0.0853 grams of precipitate. Then they had to find the mole value of the precipitate by dividing the mass in grams by the molar mass, yielding 0.0008523 moles of calcium carbonate. Because calcium carbonate and calcium chloride were in a 1-to-1 ratio, calcium chloride also had 0.0008523 moles. Then they had to find the concentration of calcium chloride, or the molarity. They then divided that mole value by the volume, which is 0.005 liters, yielding 1.705 molarity calcium chloride.
This is just an example of how the chemists continued the same formula and the same method to find the molarity in 3 other experiments to ensure that they had a large sample size before making their conviction against Professor Plum.
chakula chetu tunachohitaji utusamehe